Field of medical care and medical research, specifically in cancer, we are amassing vast quantities of what I refer to as multimodal data, so different data types. So we have what people would consider standard clinical data, which can include laboratory tests. We have pathology images, basically, so from a cancer biopsy or surgery. We have radiology images. And we have molecular information, DNA, RNA, protein level information of cancer cells themselves and the other cells that are within cancers or tumors that are not cancer cells but are supporting cancer cells. So just think of those categories and not beyond that. Where artificial intelligence is going to be needed and very powerful is in colliding those types of data and trying to understand out of the totality of that information, how can we understand how an individual patient's cancer came into being, what keeps it going, if you will, at the time that we find it or intercept it, and then ultimately how to not only predict the future in terms of prognosis, but match those patients to therapy. We have only looked in single compartments of that type of data up to present times, but artificial intelligence is going to be needed because we simply cannot imagine how this type of data will intersect in an informative way, and we effectively need machines to learn how to do that. So artificial intelligence / machine learning, at least in biomedical research, is finally finding its moment. To really capitalize on that opportunity, we need to, quote unquote, liberate the data. In other words, we need to be able to actually join these data types, first at the level of institutions like Mass General Brigham, but ultimately at larger scale, at population scale, to gain the picture or the understanding that we're trying to accomplish. So early days, and lots has been said about artificial intelligence and the promise that it holds, but I think we have line of sight now, at least in biomedical research and specifically in cancer, in terms of how we'll be able to leverage those tools. So cost of cancer care has been spiraling in recent years, mostly because of drugs, not only because of drugs. But the problem is going to get worse before it gets better in this following sense. One is that cancer is a complicated set of diseases, and to match the complexity of cancer with therapeutics, we're going to actually need to work our way towards multi-drug regimens that ultimately match the complexity of cancer. I often talk about the notion of needing to be able to weave together 4 treatments. But current prices, 4 cancer drugs stacked on top of each other, and go with ones that have been recently approved in the past 5 or 10 years, starts to create a cost that even in the United States, which is the least cost-sensitive environment worldwide, even that becomes stressful to the healthcare system and our system of insurance, given how common cancer is. In Europe, the price sensitivity is far greater. Beyond Europe, the price sensitivity multiplies. So we face a real uphill battle considering current cost strategies, if you will, that companies adopt to try to recoup their R&D investment, yes, but also to be able to drive research and development going forward. Well, I think we're seeing cures happening in cancer, but I would use the word incrementally, which is to say that we're clearly seeing a higher and higher fraction of patients cured from cancer over the 25-year course of my career, but undeniably. But in fits and starts, which is to say that we see that progress made either in only one cancer type and not others for a specific treatment, or even in just a subpopulation or minority of a given cancer type. But if you patch together all of the advances that have been made in terms of new therapies, and you hone in on those patients who really get the most profound benefit from those therapies, cures are unquestionably realized. And that's true even in the most advanced forms of cancer, or referred to as metastatic cancer, that's spread throughout the body beyond surgical reach. The big advance is going to be not only in continued discovery and development of new therapies, which is certainly accelerated in recent years. It's going to be applying those therapies at an earlier and earlier point in the disease course. That has not been our tradition. Our tradition has been to qualify new therapies as useful in patients who have advanced cancer and who've already received and unfortunately not benefited from those therapies when cancer is progressing and it's oftentimes close to life-threatening. That's a real challenge for a variety of reasons, but we have technologies now that allow us to detect cancer or residual cancer at a microscopic level, but beyond what an imaging test conventionally could identify. And by beginning to investigate and deploy therapies at those earlier stages, we have every reason to believe, based on already existing human evidence, that even some of the same therapies that we have now that can extend life can be curative when you're dealing with a much smaller problem, much less molecularly complex, and able to be eradicated even with some of our existing drugs. Combine the therapeutic advances with the diagnostic technologies, and to me, that's what's going to create a leapfrog, a quantum step in terms of cure. So 20 years from now, patients will have an early detection of cancer, oftentimes before we can even find where it is in the body, and where we will match therapy to the molecular features that we're able to detect with that early screening method. Let's imagine a blood test as a commonly used tool for that purpose, where we're effectively intervening before a patient has any awareness whatsoever, where surgery is not even indicated because cancer's not very large, but also where we can't even see it with any available imaging method, even 20 years from now, and where we head off the problem at a much earlier point than we do currently. That's not true prevention in terms of actually getting ahead of the problem and never allowing it to occur in the first place, but it's one step removed from that, from the very early intervention.